beautiful evening. Welcome to this beautiful evening with the Global Women in Leadership Conversation Series. I'm Aparna G. Kumar, the Global Chairperson for Women Entrepreneurship and Empowerment of GCPIT, and your host for the evening. Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. This is the theme of International Women's Day 2021. Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, GCPIT, has started this global conversation series with women achievers and leaders to understand their journey, to learn from their experiences, and also to pave the way for more women leaders to join the wagon to create a sustainable change in the society in terms of gender equality, diversity, and inclusion. We are talking about women and leadership, but who is a real leader? What does it take for women leaders to succeed in the new normal? To tell us more, we have a very special and powerful person with us today to share her experiences as a leader. She is an award-winning gender diversity, inclusion, and career strategist, author, speaker, mentor, and advisor to Fortune 500 companies. She is the founder and CEO of UMA, an international platform that empowers confidence, inspires success, and builds leadership in women and minorities. She began her professional career at Goldman Sachs in London, where she was awarded the prestigious Excellence Citizenship and Diversity Award. She is also a distinguished alumna of King's College London, triple Stevie Awards for Women in Business winner, judge for the Mid Awards, the recipient of several international awards in recognition for her significant contributions and leadership in furthering gender equality, diversity, and inclusion around the world. She actively coaches and mentors business leaders, veterans, survivors of domestic violence, women in technology, STEM, schoolgirls, and students. She also serves as an advisor, ambassador, and diversity and inclusion expert to multiple boards and global organizations. She is also a regularly invited speaker and guest lecturer at various academic institutions, multinational corporations, and global policy forums, such as UNESCO in Paris, European Parliament in Brussels, and many more, from Assam, Delhi, London, Madrid, Meghalaya, New York, San Francisco, Sochi, Toronto, and Zambia. He has been featured as an expert on multiple international television and news shows, interviewed and quoted in various podcasts and publications such as the Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, Technology, CBS News, Fox News, and Yahoo Finance, and is a best-selling author of books on women in business, diversity and inclusion, and also hosts the popular South Asian television show, The Uma Show, on Mana TV International. She is the Global Vice President of the Women Entrepreneurship and Empowerment Vertical of GCPIT, and now she is in the list of GCPIT's 100 chosen global women leaders, and also the winner of the She Trades Global Leadership Awards 2021. Let me proudly welcome the founder and CEO of UMA, Ms. Rita Kakati-Shah, to the show. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. It's absolutely wonderful to be here.
And happy Valentine's Day to you.
Happy Valentine's Day, yes.
Yes, before starting our conversation, let me tell you, Rita, I love and I'm really proud of the work you are doing at UMA.
Thank you so much.
I believe we have a lot to learn from you, and this 30 minutes is not enough to discuss the amazing work you are doing towards empowering women. So every interview of yours is a huge learning experience for me, and I'm really looking forward to the book we are planning on women in leadership. I believe and hope it will accelerate the process of achieving gender equality and also will motivate other women to take up leadership roles and start mentoring more and more women to become powerful leaders. So let's begin the conversation with the story of Uma. I have heard you say that Uma is the goddess of go-getting, right? Can you tell us how it all started?
Yeah, so Uma is really a depiction of my personal life, my personal journey. I started my career in finance. I was at Goldman Sachs for about 10 years, and I was involved in diversity and inclusion initiatives during my time there. I transitioned careers into the pharmaceutical industry, and I was in business development, meaning I got to travel here, there, and everywhere around the world. That took me on my travels to the US, to New York, which is where I am now. And after I moved here, I got married, and I have two small children who are now 6 and 8. And when I was pregnant with them, I took some time off, about 3.5, 4 years, purely to raise them. And Aparna, I've got to tell you that out of all of the jobs I've ever done, where I thought that investment banking was tough at times, working 24/7, or traveling around the world and crossing multiple time zones and stuff, that was nothing compared to being a full-time mother. And that taught me so many things, not just about motherhood, but about myself and the skills and the resilience it really takes to be that parent and that caregiver for the next generation out there. So that's really, in a way, what planted the seeds for starting UMA. When I was thinking of returning to work, when my children were at a certain age and I felt comfortable sending them to daycare and having somebody help me out with looking after them, I spoke to friends of mine in industries such as finance, such as healthcare. I wasn't sure which area I wanted to be in. But I found quite alarmingly that the questions I was being asked was nothing to do with my credentials or what I could take back to the workforce if I were to go back again. It was solely focused on the fact that I had taken some time off to raise my children. That was translated to being a quitter, not being a go-getter anymore, to being somebody who wasn't career-focused or ambitious. That could not have been furthest from the truth, but that is unfortunately the reality that a lot of specifically women, specifically mothers, face in the working world. And that's really what planted and formatted the way to start UMA. And UMA is a platform, as you mentioned, to really empower confidence in women and minorities on that journey, whether they're already in the workforce, whether they're looking to go back, whether they're already in senior positions and they want to really find out how to break through that glass ceiling. We help to empower that confidence, build and inspire that leadership and resilience is what it takes, and also help to inspire not just professional success, but personal success as well. So that's the nutshell of Uma. As you mentioned, I call her the goddess of go-getting because Uma, the name, is named after our Hindu goddess Uma, who is a mother, a daughter, a sibling, and a wife. So she's really that go-getter out there. She's very determined, full of confidence, and she is that person that ultimately we all strive to be.
Right, that's amazing. I have been going through your website, really impressed by the work you are doing. And you said you started your career at Goldman Sachs, I believe, on the board, right? Where very few women were there at that time. I believe that's where you started involving in diversity and inclusion issues, and you also started the Asian Professional Network. That's where I came to know. So, can you share your experiences at Goldman Sachs in the initial days?
Absolutely, yeah. So when I first started, I was on the sales trading desk, pan-European sales trading, and I was one of very few women there at the time. So this was back in the day when diversity and inclusion was a concept, but it wasn't something that we talk about now in this day and age. So we just started off as being a natural inquiry from my side. I thought, oh, okay, where are the other women? I would love to find out what they do and see some of their work. And similarly, I would love for them to see what the work I do as well. So that's how my interest came up in a women's network there. There was a women's network, but back in the day, back in the early 2000s, the reputation was very much for women just meeting for coffee and talking about things. And I thought, okay, that's great, but what if we want to make it a little bit more professional networking, so we can actually make it focused on the job market? What is it we're doing? Have a better understanding for what we're doing. And really that helps build that inner network and confidence that we all have. So that came for the women's network. Similarly, the Asian Professionals Network, I thought there are definitely people of color, quite a lot actually at Goldman. But back in the day, it was almost a stereotypical role. For example, if you looked at the technology desk, there would be people from India there. If you looked at the Latin American desk, there would be people that were from that background, and similarly from other forces as well. So I thought, why not, have it so it's a bit more mixed? If I want to find out what the Japan desk does, it doesn't matter that I'm not fluent in the language, but I have an interest maybe in the market. Similarly, there might be other people who had an interest in different areas too. So that really led to the birth of the Asian Professional Network. Back then, where there weren't really that many affinity groups, we had to put together a business plan. So I remember speaking to different stakeholders, not just on the equities floor, but around different divisions too. I said, okay, who believes in this? Let's put together a presentation and present it. And it, was followed through, and that led to the birth of the Asian Professional Network.
That's really amazing. When we doubt our abilities, right? Rita, I know, is very powerful, down to earth, humble, and whenever I interact with you, I really get energized. Was there any time when you doubted your abilities, and how did you overcome that?
You know, there have always been times in my life that I have. I think there's not a single person on this planet that hasn't had some level of self-doubt. Even the most prominent speakers, ministers, presidents out there, there is some sort of like a pit in your tummy that you get sometimes before you're going out. I like to refer to that as imposter syndrome that we mostly women tend to have actually, but we all have a little bit of that. And that's for a moment when you think, gosh, what if I forget my lines? What if I forget about this? So we've all had that. A specific example in my life was when I was thinking of returning to a professional career again, I went to a networking event. And this was my first ever event after I had my children. So I was a bit nervous. And I remember putting on this work dress, the only one that fit at the time. I was still getting back to my, regular weight post-pregnancy. So I put that on, and inside my head, I had so many voices telling me, "Oh, do you really want to go to this? Isn't it better to stay at home?" But I thought, you know what? I want to do this for myself. I want to just go out there. So I remember going out there to this event, putting on some high heels, which in hindsight was probably not a good idea because that was uncomfortable. But we went there. So I went to this event, and we all had to put a name tag on. On mine, I put my name, and I put, you have to put the industry or the job you're doing. So I put SAHM, which stood for Stay at Home Mother. And an attendee came and introduced herself to me soon after we got there and said, "Hi, Rita. It's SAHM. What kind of a company is that?" And I said, "Oh, it stands for Stay at Home Mom." And then I kid you not, Aparna, the minute I said that, she just turned her back and she walked away. And that moment was a defining moment for me. It felt like a slap on the cheek. That for me is almost like when you are a stay-at-home mom, how you feel society regards you. So almost what she did, it was how you feel anyway inside. You feel like you're irrelevant. You feel like when you announce that you're not in a job, that people don't want to talk to you. And that all came together. So at that moment, Aparna, I completely lost my confidence. And I had one of two choices at that point. I could have just turned around and walked out of the door. I had only walked in, so I wasn't far from the door. Or from my perspective, I thought, you know what? I came all the way here. It took a lot of effort. If I'm going to leave, I at least want to find out, why did she just turn around like that? So I went after her. I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, "Excuse me, so-and-so, why did you react that way?" And then she was really, really taken aback upon it. She had no idea that was actually her reaction. From her perspective, she was only there for 10 minutes. She wanted a job in finance. She wanted to transition into something else. So if it wasn't somebody relevant, she turned around and she wanted to talk to somebody else. But the way it came across wasn't that. So when we talked about it, she felt very embarrassed. When I heard her side of the story, I thought, wow, it wasn't because of me. It was because of something else going on. And then we started chatting about her background. And then soon after, she became my best friend when I mentioned my former finance career. And we got chatting. And she was actually one of the women that I helped when I first started UMA, in terms of confidence and workforce later on. So it's amazing how the world has these different ways of coming together. But that was one of my memorable stories of losing confidence, and how I thought, hold on a minute, I'm in charge of this confidence here. I could just leave, but I thought I make the decision. I couldn't control her reaction, but I could control my reaction. And that's what made the determining factor of how I was going to react to that.
Many of us have gone through this in one way or another. That is really inspiring what you did. So we were talking about work at home, not work at home mothers, motherhood, right? I loved your perspective when you said that the skills you learn as a mother are unparalleled, right? It's true that if you can negotiate with a toddler, you can negotiate with anybody.
Yep.
Many of the mothers think that from that perspective. So what advice would you like to give to the mothers and fathers who think work at home now is a huge challenge with kids around?
Absolutely. And, pretty much the whole world is working from home right now. One of my biggest lessons I think I learned and I realized is that I thought I had a lot of professional skills being in the workforce. However, it wasn't until I went through parenthood, became a mother, that I realized that, wow, there are so many skills that are important to the workforce that I'm only getting after becoming a full-time parent. And those skills were things like, I thought I was very patient. No, I was not patient. I didn't know what the word meant until I had kids, That taught me what patience is. Communications. I always thought of myself as being a very good communicator, but communications, the way I knew it, was talking to people, maybe picking up the phone. That was my communications. When you're with kids, communications is stretching so much more. There's non-verbal communications. There's the ability to empathize and understand when a baby can't talk to you, but you have to understand by their moods or their cries how they're feeling. That is communication too. Drawing, visual arts, that is also communication. And the whole digital world out there. You know, when I was at home, I started to become a lot more fluent with social media just by virtue of learning more. That was another way as well. So it taught me so many things. And the example you just gave, Aparna, that I love to give is about negotiation. You know, I joke all the time that if you can negotiate with a toddler or an adolescent, there's nobody else you can't take on if you want to go to a boardroom or an interview. So take that lesson when you go forward. So absolutely, there's so many skills out there. And then now we're working from home. We have to be a bit more patient, but the whole world is learning. Rather than shy away and hide what our family lives are, it's about, you know, telling people in advance. If there's a recording going on like now and say, hey, I've got kids next door, they might run in, and then people kind of understand that, you know, or people have pets and they might sort of bark in between, things like that. So people understand. It's about scheduling yourself, being organized, organizing your calls at times that you know you can balance your day better. So it forces you, being a parent, whether you're a mother or a father, it forces you to kind of practice those skills of really putting hard stops and owning your time. Your time becomes that much more precious when you're working from home. And it can be very easily maintained by just having a bit more structure in place as well.
I know you are really passionate about your work, and you have said that you really enjoy motherhood as well. So how do you manage your day?
How do I manage my day? Well, I mean, no 2 days are the same for starters. It's very busy. I mean, my early mornings are with my kids, getting them started and ready for school. But quite often, because Uma, we deal with many different locations. Sometimes I have calls with India very early in the morning, or late at night, I'm on the phone to, Los Angeles or San Francisco, or it's early morning in India time. So the day is not just 9 to 5 at all, it stretches. But between that, I just have to be very strict with my times. There are certain times that I can't be on a call, or I can't be on a training session or a mentoring session. Those are the times that I'm, picking up my kids, organizing dinner for them, making sure they're sorted out, So these are things that I have to be very strict about and how I manage it. Yes, it is tough, but so is life in general. And there's not a single day that I think, wow, that was a tough day. But it's about balancing that and upon taking time to myself. Now, time to myself before the pandemic was traveling. I used to travel all over the world for my different talks and my lectures. I'm not traveling now, so it's different for me to find out how do I get that me time. So for me, it's like, okay, rather than, just go drop off my kids and come back, I will take a little bit of extra time, maybe go around the block. I will take some of my calls via Zoom that I don't always have to be in video on, or I can just have my phone and I'll just put my earphones in and I will walk around the block. I will get that fresh air. I will just take that time to myself, and it makes me feel so much better for doing so.
We're talking about achieving an equal future in the COVID-19 world, right? I know that you were at the epicenter of the pandemic in the initial scary days, and you have gone through a really tough time. How do you manage yourself with all the stress during that time?
So, during when the pandemic first started, so if we think about March of last year, when this all really kicked off, so I contracted COVID very early on. I came back from the UK, I think, with it, and I was there for work. And it was tough because that was the time when nobody really knew what was going on. And it was a scary time. It was a time where schools closed down, everything switched to homeschooling. I had to sustain Uma at the same time and homeschool the kids and recover. And, I was sick at the same time and recovering. So it was a very tough time. And this was at the time as well where, I was suddenly all my travel got closed off. I couldn't go and I had to cancel a lot of my speaking engagements around the world. So, but what happens? You pivot. Do you give up or do you do something about it? I thought, okay, well, what is the world saying? The services that I provide are still very important. People still need me. How do I get me to them? And that's what helped me pivot. Sometimes you just think different ideas that, okay, the world is asking for a different business idea. But for me, they still wanted my voice. They wanted my advice. But I thought, how do I get it to them? And then we started to pivot to online trainings, online coachings, everything done virtually. There's so many modalities now. And then when companies started to switch as well, it became so much more efficient. Businesses increased so much more because I can do so much more work for them and my rest of my colleagues too. For example, only a couple of months ago or so, I did a conference in Delhi, one in Moscow and one in Zambia in 2 days. Now, had this been pre-COVID times, I probably could have fitted one, maybe the second location in, but I would have been probably quite exhausted in between. But this way, I could have fitted all three in quite easily just by managing my time. So things like that, it's about how you think about it. I see things as the glass being half full. What's the positive side? What can we get out of this experience rather than, oh, it's a bad time? This is a good time in different ways as well.
Normal. So, what advice would you give, or what suggestions would you give to the other women who are also going through the same issues across the globe due to this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think a great question. I think that if you are thinking of it is a difficult time for everybody. So acknowledge that. But think about your time, your own leadership. What is your passion? What is driving you? Think of what you're doing and why. For me, it was the why that drove me to pivot. I'm impacting lives. If I stop, these lives are not going to be impacted. If I stop, we can't change people's minds. We cannot change policy, then things are going to close off. My whole thing is about gender equality. How do we obtain that real, diverse and inclusive workforce? If the work stops, everything stops as well. So similarly for you, whatever your job is, whatever that mission is, think about your own purpose and that mission, that driving force. That is what's going to drive you to carry on. And then around that, I said just have a very good schedule. Scheduling really, really helps, and compartmentalize. Have time for your personal life. Have time for your professional life. Have time to just think and read and research and sort of gain your own understanding as well, because these are really important components. And once they're balanced, it's a lot easier to obtain.
We are talking about gender equality, diversity, and inclusion at a time when many are going through a lot of issues in their workplaces, like and homes also, where many are struggling with business and finances. And according to the UN, there is also something called shadow pandemic, that is women are harassment at hands of the men they know. Many are facing cyber harassment during work at home. Many have psychological issues due to all this. What do you think we can do as leaders to come together and create a sustainable change to the situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very good question. I mean, to your point, I mean, there was a study that McKinsey did with the Lean organization to show that 1 in 4 women during the pandemic feel forced to leave the workforce because of the added pressure and burdens from working from home. Everybody's taken a lot more, whether you're a man or a woman, but the women have felt that they're taking a lot more on top of that. And because of that, things have been a little bit more forced. So I think in terms of attaining that more equality from a workforce perspective, try to think about the extra burden that that your female members of your staff are probably going to experience. You cannot hide from the statistics, the actual research out there. Think about how can you segregate time. Men want to help as well, but unless you give them the opportunity or show them how to do it, they don't know how. So let's try to help them from a company perspective. If there's some extra time needed for pickup, don't just give it to the female employee, give it to the male employee too. It needs to be equality. If there's a parent on your team and it's a father, say, hey, if you want to take off some time on a Friday, don't have to join that Zoom or just join it from the road. It's fine. You can just dial in and turn your video off. Do things like that to kind of show that you're thinking that it's a two-way process. Similarly, it's not just the workforce, and I talk about this a lot. It's the socio-economic structure, it's the culture, it's the conversations you have at home. What are the conversations going on? Who is talking about the division of labor at home? If you have children at home, how do we talk about different aspects of the news? How do we talk about looking at the media and how women and men are portrayed? If we try to listen to our voices and present it in a way that's a lot more equal, we are at the same time educating the next generation. That's the generation that's going to bring gender equality to the forefront. We are just merely putting the foundation down, but they're the generation that's actually going to do something about it. So there's a lot of mini steps that need to be taken, but in small increments. If you try to force change, quite often, it doesn't happen. You have two ways where some people are like totally against it and some people are for it. But doing small increments and through good education of this, that's how the change is going to happen.
One more question. When somebody thinks of taking the first step towards implementing diversity and inclusion in their organization, where do you think they should start?
I think the first thing to start is, why are you wanting to do it? There are a lot of organizations now that are putting together diverse and inclusion packages, employee resource groups at their firms, but quite often they're doing it because they're trying to tick off a box, or they're answering to their own board that is saying, you know what, you need to be a bit more diverse. So they're trying to do that. So rather than think I'm just checking a box off, think about, what is the aim for this? Is it because you are genuinely trying to explore the cultures that your company is serving? Because that's a very good reason to try to be more diverse, to think, okay, this is my market I'm serving. In order to understand who I'm serving, we need to have more of a diverse workforce here. We need to fulfill our employees with the demographic that we're trying to serve. Or is it because you're trying to think, you know what, I want to get some different voices across. We are making a product, and there's a whole portion of the population out there that is not even getting to hear that. It could be makeup, for example. We have one company making makeup, and it's made by white male, and they're the ones who are designing it, with a few female scientists, maybe, but there's nobody of any color there. So how are you going to cater to skin tones of a different demographic, for example? So it could be anything like that. So I think you have to think about the why and then the how. When you have that, it's a lot easier to think about what are the small steps you can take to make a diverse and inclusive group in your workforce.
Okay. There are a lot of women who look up to you for inspiration. What advice would you like to give to the next generation of female leaders?
Thank you for asking that. I always tell people, so the tagline at UMA is, be bold, be you, be UMA. And that is something I actually live by, because being bold means you are true to yourself. You take that bold step, you believe in yourself. Being you is, don't forget your own identity, where you come from, who you are. If you try to step in someone else's shoes, that's not going to happen. Be yourself. And then we say, by being UMA, be that goddess of go-getting. You be that goddess of go-getting, and you're going to be unstoppable.
And being a strong leader, do you experience resistance when you're leading men or women?
I think, resistance comes with anything, any walk of life. You don't even have to be a leader to find that. If you have a radical idea and it's something people haven't heard of, there's going to be resistance. Generally, people resist to any change. Even if it's a good idea, people resist. The first reaction you're going to get is like, oh, but what if? That's normal. So yes, I've had it so many times. I tell people, I joke that this nose of mine is red because of the amount of times the door has been just shut. But that's not stopped me. I think I know that this is going to help change something. If you don't keep persistent, if you don't ask and know what you're doing and get that research to back you up, nothing's going to change. So I tell people all the time, resistance is good. It means you're making an impact. You're making people think about something. And this is the time to go in.
Let me get into my last two questions since the time is. How do you feel being in the list of 100 women leaders and being awarded under the She Trades Global Leadership Awards?
I wanted to say, I was so humbled by that recognition. It was such a lovely, lovely surprise. Such an incredible organization. So I'm very honored and humbled to be on that list of 100 women. But also, when I found out I won the award, it's a wonderful recognition, and I really thank you, and I love the work that you're doing as well.
Thank you so much, and congratulations. And
Thank you.
what would be your message for She Trades Global Mission 2021?
I think just go forth unafraid. Just be that goddess of go-getting, and you're unstoppable.
That was amazing, Rita, talking to you. And thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed listening to you, and I'm sure the audience also would have learned a lot from our conversation. Wish you all the best in your future endeavors as well.
Thank you so much, Aparna. Thank you.
Thank you, dear audience, for being with us till now. If you think you are an elite performer and looking for exponential leadership, join us. You can get all the details at gcpit.org. We'll be back tomorrow with another powerful global woman leader. This is Aparna signing off. Good night and stay safe.